for the most hysterical period, she was subjected to vicious and untrue lies about her life, about her marriage, about her safety, about whether she was even alive by cretinous individuals. A lot of them part of the Sussex Squad, people like Stephen Colbert. And the way that she dealt with that with such class and such dignity, given that we now know she had experienced a cancer diagnosis, I thought was phenomenal. And I'm very excited about this because, a little bit of background, when I launched my show on GB News, and Calvin was one of the inaugural guests and was with me on the Superstar panel every single week, unless he was on holiday or away working, until my show was abruptly cancelled. And at the end of every show, I came up with a concept called Greatest Briton and Union Jackass. And every day, the Superstar panel would nominate the people in the UK or overseas, but usually we tried to stick to Brits, who had either done something incredible that day or really annoyed them, and I would choose the winner. Now, when my show ended on GB News, they actually decided to keep the format and to continue using that feature at the end of the show. Personally, I found that a little bit weird, but whatever, that's up to them. That's their call. But Michael Cass, who is the brilliant guy who runs the Dan Wootton Tonight, that was what it used to be called, Freudian split, the Dan Wootton Outspoken Club on X, alongside with Karen and Anna and Darren, and they have been absolutely incredible, growing this club to be such a strong community of, I think, about 13,000 of us now. And please, if you're not a member, do go and follow. Every single day, they still run the original Greatest Briton and Union Jackass. So the viewers of Outspoken, the Outspoken community, nominate, and the winner is announced via X. So what they have done is put together for me to announce here with you, Calvin, the top 10 Greatest Britons of 2024, not as chosen by Calvin or I, but as chosen by the Outspoken family. And this is going to be the first time that we are aware of the results, so we have absolutely no idea who is going to be in this list. Calvin, shall we kick off?
Amazing, let's do it.
Okay, at number 10, the 10th Greatest Briton of 2024. Let's take a look. Oh, wow. She's got to be there. J.K. Rowling.
That makes a lot of sense. She's been fighting the good fight solidly this year. There was that court case threat where Scotland tried to say, well, arrest anyone who says anything remotely offensive. And she was like, I'm going to say something offensive. Arrest me. But she's been on the trans battle. She's been pro-women constantly and taking hits left, right, and center from the very people she helped make. I mean, you could relate to that, Dan. But she's been there throughout the whole year. So, yeah, well done to her.
I think, in a way, she risked more than anyone. Now, I know it's very easy to say, Calvin, yeah, but she's a billionaire. What does she have to lose? But remember, she was a hero. She was beloved on both sides of the Atlantic, with the establishment, with the Hollywood woke brigade. She didn't have to do this, Calvin. And actually, she did risk so much, because she went from a hero to persona non grata in Hollywood almost overnight. Now, it is brilliant.
I actually think...
Sorry, you go.
When people say, well, that person's a celebrity, they've got nothing to lose, or that person's rich, they've got... Actually, I think when you're rich or you're a celebrity, you've got even more to lose. I think J.K. Rowling had more to lose than Joe Bloggs sitting at home with an anonymous account saying a similar thing to her. She lost her status, she lost lots of friends, she lost her colleagues, and she potentially lost a lot of money through sticking to what she believes to be the truth. And so kudos to her for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And the thing is, actually, at the end of the day, why I think I have the most respect for J.K. Rowling, and remember, the background of me and J.K. Rowling is we have never been friends. Actually, I very much disagreed with her on Brexit, for example, and where she stood politically on a lot of things. And there was even a little legal skirmish between the two of us, which I won't go into now because we've all been positive. But it doesn't matter, Calvin, because I put all of that to one side, because her sticking up for biological rights and the rights of women and actually making the term TERF, I believe, a term of endearment and not some sort of egregious put down, is what her legacy will be, far more than the books that she wrote. Now, I know Harry Potter fans might disagree with that, but that's how I view it. So it doesn't matter what our differences were politically, because she was so bold with what she did for women's rights and standing up for women's rights. I also think, Calvin, there has been a bit of a 180 now in terms of Hollywood. So we've seen, I think it's HBO Max, Warner Brothers effectively say, we're backing J.K. Rowling. We need the Harry Potter franchise. She's heavily involved in the TV series. And even though those awful little brats who we just saw, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, Daniel Radcliffe, who would be absolutely nothing without J.K. Rowling, even though they all turned on her, I would imagine the new actors in the new Harry Potter movie might keep their woke little opinions to themselves, right?
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's been a mood shift. Things are coming back around. Woke is dying, and people are jumping off that bandwagon. And so when people do realize, when they do that full 180, they'll realize that people who have been there all along weren't the bad guys, like J.K. Rowling. And so hopefully the new actors and the new studios will be like, oh, yeah, she had a point. And maybe we won't stab her in the back if we become successful. I mean, those original four, they're just vapid. I don't really hold anything against them. I don't think they have much of an opinion, because I think they just go with the flow of whatever's happening around them. So then people like that aren't to blame, really and truly. But well done to JK for sticking by it and continuing. She could have jacked it all in years ago, but she's still going on with the franchise that people love.
100%. And by the way, I completely agree with you. I am not for a single second saying that those little brats shouldn't be able to say what they said and shouldn't be able to express it. Personally, I just wish they'd done it in a way where this is what I believe in. This is why I believe in the mutilation of children. And have that debate, have that discussion. But instead, they did it simply to trash J.K. Rowling because that's what the media expected of them. So if they wanted to have a debate, absolutely go for it. But what I didn't like is that it was so personalized. But this is the cancel culture world we live in. And as you say, I think because of the Trump election, there has been a big U-turn. Okay, let's move on. The 9th Greatest Briton of 2024. Let's reveal who it is. Oh, now I've just been told, Calvin, it's actually not the man there.
Oh.
It is the party.
Okay.
It's Reform UK, which obviously had, in my opinion, a brilliant year in 2024. What do you think?
They got 5 MPs into Parliament. That's quite a success for a small party. They've been in the headlines a lot, not always for good reasons. I don't think they'd be in my top 10, but I can understand why people have selected them, because people are looking for hope. People are looking for someone or something to cling to. And it seems like Reform is one of the few options available at the moment for people in the UK to get some political change. I don't think the Reform would bring about political change. You and I probably disagree on that, but at least people see there's a glimmer of hope there. And so the optimism is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, Calvin, you know how I feel about Reform UK. I'm a critical friend, but if I look at the totality of the year, Reform UK has given me so much hope. I voted for them in July. I'm delighted that I did. I think the 5 MPs have absolutely punched above their weight. I think Rupert Lowe has come in and been an absolute star. I think Richard Tice has done some amazing things. Now, look, of course, there are things that I disagree with Reform on, and I've spoken about them infinitum over the past few weeks. But if I look at it in its totality, I feel like I would have no political hope if Reform UK was not in Parliament. And so for that, I am incredibly grateful. Okay, let's move on to number 8 in our countdown of the Greatest Britons of 2024. This has been revealed to us for the first time. Oh, lovely. This is our former colleague, the great Mark Steyn. And what a difficult year he had, Calvin.
Oh, and he's had a difficult decade, Mark Steyn, but bless him for I mean, he's another one that's been vindicated because let's be honest, the reason he was cancelled was because he was speaking out against the vaccine at a time that it was seen as inappropriate to do so. It was there was a lot of pressure on companies like the one we used to work for not to have the conversations that he was having. And he was absolutely right to be having them. The vaccine injured should have a voice, and they're becoming more and more common now. And we're finding out that it's okay to say that this so-called vaccine, the jab, has been potentially more harmful than good. And he was one of the few people that was willing to have that conversation. So well done to Mark Steyn.
Of course, and he is still being the target of lawfare. The off-communists absolutely gunning for him because he wasn't prepared to just roll over. And they're coming for him for over £100,000. And thanks to the Outspoken family, luckily, we were able to raise the first tranche of money that was demanded of him, over £50,000. And Calvin, I'm very excited. I don't know if you are, but we're going to be on the Mark Steyn cruise in April, which is another great way to support Mark because he's such an incredible voice. And actually, the thing is, if GB News had just stood by Mark, just hadn't given in, hadn't tried the appeasement strategy with Ofcom, the off-communists, we might all be in a better place now, right?
I mean, it might be a strong channel with me, you, Lawrence, Mark, and other people might still be there, having hard conversations, voicing opinions that people want to be heard, instead of just having these vapid, empty shells that are very afraid to say anything anymore and trying to be a bit cheesy and funny instead of having the hard conversations. It might have been the thing that you and I hoped it would be from the beginning, if they'd have just stuck by Mark Steyn, but they did not have the kahunas.
Yeah, it was for a period when Mark was there, a really strong channel. We were doing really daring, fascinating things. And I think in a large part that was because of him, because he showed people like me, okay, we can be really brave here. This is an exciting platform. But of course, as is always the case, he was muzzled. Okay, number 7 on the list of Greatest Britons of 2024. Let's reveal who the Outspoken family have chosen. Oh, and that is a good choice. Sir Alan Bates. And actually, that's probably one of the few knighthoods I actually agree with Calvin in recent months, because he put his whole life on the line, really, to fight for the rights of the post office workers. I still think it's a great shame that it took a TV drama to really properly crystallize just what had been done to the post office masters. But Sir Alan Bates really was behind so much of it, Calvin.
Oh yeah, I mean the bad guys like porn availables and the politicians and all of that got exposed because of this documentary, and he was one of the few people fighting the good fight for all of that time to get it out, to get the conversation aired, and to get justice for the people that were owed it. But I mean, just this month, we've had some news that Royal Mail is going to be completely sold off now to foreigners. Like the last part of that British heritage, 508 years, is down the pan. It feels like the country is being sold off bit by bit. And of course, the people who were involved in this situation were harmed. Like people were sold off, and now the institution itself is being sold. It's all so sad. Like the nickel and diming our country. To what end? Why? Because they don't believe in it anymore. There are many of us that still do believe in our country. Perhaps those kinds of people should be put at the reins instead.
Yeah,
but yes, it's good to see a knighthood go to someone who deserves it for once, rather than a pat on the back for someone who's been helping behind the scenes in politics or something shady for a while.
Well, indeed. And if the establishment thought, that it was going to muzzle him, they were wrong. Because as soon as he was knighted, and there we see it, a very special day with Princess Anne, as soon as that happened, Calvin, he immediately attacked the Labour government. So it showed that a knighthood would not buy his silence. Okay, let's reveal number 6 on the list of the Greatest Britons of 2024 this Christmas Day. Oh, and another former colleague of ours, Father Calvin, Lee Anderson, who, of course, became Reform UK's first MP and was then re-elected. So this is a guy, actually, I think his political journey is really interesting, isn't it? Labour guy. Strong Labour guy. He was a miner. He was the working class Labour kid who was attracted to the Conservative Party through Boris Johnson and Brexit. But when he spoke too many truths about the Islamification of London and what Sadiq Khan has done to the capital city, it was only Reform UK that would welcome him. And I think the loss of Lee Anderson to the Conservative Party was a mistake that they will come to root, maybe even a historic mistake, Calvin.
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of time for Lee Anderson because he's just real. Like what you see is what you get. He's a genuine person. My father's over for Christmas at the moment, and I think Lee and my father knew each other growing up because he's from my neck of the woods, of course. Ashfield is the place where I had my first job at 13 years old. It's just down the road from Mansfield, where I was born and raised. But the way Lee speaks is exactly how my father and most of my family speak. It's that it's just saying what they think, and I don't just mean the accent. I mean what they feel is what you will hear, so you know exactly where you stand with a person like Lee. And so when he came over to GB News, I'm like, this is great. This is good for us. This is good for the public conversation. When he got elected with Reform, I thought, okay, great. So I don't necessarily trust Richard and Nigel on all things, but at least they've got someone with some grit to pull them onto the right path. And it is a shame that the Conservatives couldn't hack him, but he's uncouth to them, right? He speaks truth that they would rather talk around rather than about. And so someone like Lee would never really fit in with the Conservatives. And I campaigned with him on Brexit as well, back before it was Reform, when it was the Brexit Party, and that was always good. He was always willing to put the hard work in, and I respect people like that.
Yeah, I think it was the end of the Conservative Party, actually, when they decided to throw Lee Anderson under the bus. And of course, that even made him deputy chair of the party. But of course, in the end, you're right, they're snobs. And that is a fundamental issue, actually, with a lot of what we discuss. There's a huge snobbery. There's a snobbery around Tommy Robinson, of course, who is behind bars this Christmas Day, because you're allowed to say certain things if you have a posh voice, like Douglas Murray. And by the way, Douglas is a friend. I think it's absolutely brilliant that Douglas Murray is allowed to speak. But if you've got a working class voice like Tommy Robinson, no, we're going to lock you up. So I think Lee Anderson, I remember when Lee first came to public consciousness, actually was refusing to back the England football team because they took the knee for Black Lives Matter. Well, who was right on that? And at the time, the whole establishment came down on Lee Anderson with a ton of bricks. Okay, we're into the top 5. Calvin, this is very exciting. Top 5 of the greatest Britons of 2024. Let's go. Well, okay, this is the ultimate honorary award, right? We can claim him, can we, because of his Scottish heritage? Yes, we can. Get it on.
I love that he's in the top 5. I wish he was higher.
He is a Scot. He's a Scot. He owns a golf club. He's got the Scottish heritage. So we're not even going to call it honorary, right?
No.
I mean, Calvin,
what he's done fixing America, he could run for Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He has the heritage. It's a possibility.
And he's only got one more term, doesn't he, in America?
Yeah. I mean, he's getting a bit old now, so it's probably not a possibility. But we need a Trump in Britain, and we don't have a Trump. And people keep putting hope on Farage. Farage isn't our Trump. Maybe our Trump will rise up over the next 5 years. We've got 4 years now. We've still got a while to go. But we need someone that has what Trump has. It's very much like what we were just talking about with Lee Anderson, right? And that Trump is so big that he's able to just speak the truth and say what he thinks. And if people don't like him for it, he doesn't really care. And the snobs can't really hold him down because he's already bigger than that. They want to come to his golf clubs. They want to come to his Mar-a-Lago. They want to be around his. He is bigger than the establishment. So the snobs can't really do anything about him. And so that's why he's been such a success, because he's a massive patriot. He loves his country, believes in his country, wants it to be better. He's the only president in living memory that's not taken a salary, and he's not doing it again for the next term, which starts in a few days. And that's a wonderful thing, because so many politicians get in it for their career or to get rich, or they might have will to change things as well, but it's never the full thing. For him, he just wants to fix his country, wants to make America great again. Who can be against that?
Absolutely. And Calvin, I think when you think about his year, it is particularly extraordinary,
Oh yeah.
right? Because I just want to show a couple of those iconic images that will go down in history. So, of course, it started with the mugshot. And they thought they'd got him, didn't they, Calvin? Finally, after years of lies about the Russia hoax and all of that rubbish, they thought they had got him. But in fact, what Trump said was no. No. I'm going to lean into this. And it became the most famous mugshot in history.
It was epic, wasn't it? It became an icon because they thought we've persecuted him, we're going to prosecute him, and he'll be humiliated when we release his mugshot. His mugshot went out, and it was on the walls and T-shirts of people up and down the United States, in fact, around the world. It became the first image of many images, actually. That he is probably. He's up there not just the top 5 greatest Brits of this year. He's up there in the top 5 greatest US presidents. There are so many key moments. I'm sure you've got some of them to come up. So many key moments of his that have been outstanding, iconic, historic moments in this year alone.
Oh yeah.
So who knows what's gonna
I
happen
mean,
in the
look,
next 4?
Calvin, the obvious one, and
Right.
this is not just the photo of the year, Calvin. It is one of the photos of the century, and he won the election at this point, didn't he? There was absolutely no doubt after this moment that he had won the election, because that message to fight was just completely extraordinary. But then there are other iconic images.
Well, before you move on, because that one's
yes.
so important. Like they tried to prosecute him and persecute him, impeach him, and then they tried to kill him. And when I say them, I'm being broad in terms of people that dislike him. But they tried to kill him, and his response, that human response, could have been many, many things. He could have run off. He could have said to his agents, "Get me out of here." He could have quit. He could have done all kinds of things. But he stood up and he said, "Fight, fight, fight." And that photograph will be in history books, not anytime soon. But in a couple of generations, that photograph will be in history books, and people will remember the strong president who cared about the fight and cared about his people. The reason it won't be in history books anytime soon is because the people that write those books are still liberals. And the liberals are, that image that you got up there, it's still difficult to find it now. That's insane. If you try to Google assassination attempt of president, Google have tried to suppress the image, and mainstream media tried to suppress the story. They were saying things like, well, what happened was it was shrapnel that hit his ear, or this and that. Like they're lying. There's misinformation, there's disinformation, all the words that they throw out there all the time. They're still doing it today, and we all witnessed it firsthand. And so that's woken a lot of people up to the mass hysteria of the mainstream media on the left, as well as the politicians on the left. Because you and I both know, if anyone took a pop at Kamala or Joe Biden or Tim Walz, that would have been the entire story for the rest of the campaign. There would have been no other conversation other than assassination attempt. They wanted to kill, assassination attempt. With
Totally.
Donald Trump, it was a few hours and it was gone.
Exactly.
It was buried.
Let's just forget it. But the thing is, Calvin, because we're in the social media age and because the mainstream media is on its deathbed, actually this became the most iconic campaign, I would argue, since JFK.
Oh, yeah.
In the 60s. And I just wanted to show 2 of my favorite images because I'm a former McDonald's worker. Calvin, this one was particularly special to me. Yeah. And you know what? I used to work at the Fry Vat for hours and hours a day. And I mean this, and I have said it for my entire life, even though I haven't worked at McDonald's now for, say, 20 years. My job at McDonald's was the hardest job I ever had. Standing behind that Fry Vat for 8 hours, you'd have to go to the back in the freezer, get out the big vat of fat, which was really, really heavy, bring it over, tip it in to the oil, get splattered, you'd be sweating in a really uncomfortable uniform. Honestly, hardest job I've ever done. So I just have the utmost respect for people who work at McDonald's. And then, of course, he took out the rubbish. And that was just so brilliant, both metaphorically and in terms of the imagery. So, yes, he definitely deserves it. And I think we're absolutely fine to claim Donald Trump.
And I've still got his box of Tic Tacs here. He's a Donald Trump skip text.
Because of course, Calvin, you met him this year,
I
right?
did. I did indeed. I had a couple of chats with him, and I spoke at his event, and it was the highlight of my year. The guy was very humble, very generous with his time, and charitable, and had a conversation. And actually, it enthused me. And again, it's one of the reasons I believe that I'm in the right place at the right time in this country. This is going to be a new golden age of America, and I'm so pleased to be here to witness it firsthand.
Well, that's when I was like, okay, this guy's living the American dream. Look at that.
What
Love
a
it, love
man.
it, love it. Okay, so let's move on in the countdown. Number 4 of our Greatest Britons of 2024. Calvin and I don't know the results. This is chosen by the Outspoken audience. Let's take a look. And of course, voted for by the people in the Outspoken Club.
Oh, Allison.
Good friend of mine, absolutely wonderful woman, Allison Pearson. I'm sure you know her by now. Star columnist at the Daily Telegraph, free speech campaigner, someone who has been on the right side of every issue, especially one of the only people in the mainstream media who was brave enough to speak up against the COVID madness, the lockdowns, trans insanity. And this year, Calvin, she got a visit from the police because of a post on X, a tweet, and it sparked a national and international outcry.
Yeah, Allison Pearson is my favourite at the Telegraph. The Telegraph is a paper that I used to write for almost daily at one point, and I used to love them. And they've veered massively to the left with the rest of the Overton
As
window.
is all the MSN, yeah.
Yeah, but Alison Pearson is one person that has stayed smack bang where she's always been, on the side of truth, righteousness, and justice. And she was visited for it. They came for her for it. And it's a great shame. The way they treated her was disgusting. You know, a renowned journalist with many, many years of professional reporting, and they treated her like she was scum on the bottom of their shoes, like she was some kind of online criminal. And that just goes to show that they are on the wrong side, and she has always been on the right side. And I'm so glad. All these people we're seeing, they're all vindicated, aren't they?
Totally vindicated. Absolutely are. Okay, Calvin Robinson, stand by, because it is the special Christmas edition of Outspoken, and we will in just one moment be counting down the top 3 Greatest Britons of 2024. So stand by for that. But first, I love the holidays, as you can tell. In my ABBA Christmas jumper. This is my favourite time of year in so many ways, but it can be really demanding, right? The past few weeks have involved going to events and dinners and looking for gifts and then planning for today itself. So every year, I know personally I tend to burn out quicker than the last, which might have something to do with getting older. But this year, I don't plan to burn out at all, because getting older is inevitable, but feeling older isn't. As we get older, our body's ability to create energy declines, but recent scientific discoveries have found we can actually increase our energy levels in our cells by taking something called NMN. NMN has been shown to increase energy and endurance, activate our body's ability to burn fat, enhance mental function and health, improve blood pressure, regulate blood sugar levels, and support many other health markers. Finding high-quality pure NMN is hard, so I use Verso. They conduct third-party testing for each batch produced to guarantee you get what you pay for. It contains the highest quality NMN and other research-backed ingredients that have been shown to increase energy levels and slow down aging. After taking Cellbean for some time, I feel like a younger version of myself. I've noticed more energy, enhanced endurance, improved cognition, fat loss, better sleep, and if I do get a cold, I recover faster. So just click the link in the description on YouTube and Rumble, or head on over to buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. I'll just repeat the address: www.buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken. But now, back to the show. We return to the countdown of our Greatest Britons of 2024 as chosen by the Outspoken community. Father Calvin Robinson is with me. We have absolutely no idea of who you have decided to put in the top 3. So let's reveal it for the first time. In bronze position as the Greatest Briton for 2024, it's Nigel Farage.
Of course.
And Father Calvin, I'm very happy about this. You might be in two minds.
Again, it's good that he gives people someone to hope could change things. People need I'm not sure he is inspiration. People think he is something that he's not. Nigel Farage cares about Nigel Farage. If his if that means his career and his ambitions align with the country, then he's a good thing for us. And he is a workhorse and he can make a difference. If those things ever do not align, then we're all in trouble. I'm trying to think of positive things to say about it. He had a good show. His show was great. He's a great broadcaster.
Do you know what? I have a lot of hope in Nigel. I have a lot of hope in Nigel. I think he has been right on all the issues, and I think his heart, I know where this guy's heart is at. Now, I know, Calvin, a lot of people, and I understand.
Damn, you can't say he's been right on all the issues. He backed Tony Blair in the vaccines.
Well, I would say, I guess what I'm saying is that when people have criticized him this year, and by the way, I've done it myself, and I will be a critical friend of reform. But for example, on the mass deportation issue, on the demography issue, and also vaccines, actually. When I say I know where Nigel's heart is, I genuinely do, because I've had these discussions with him. Now, you can say, and it is a valid criticism, Calvin, to say, well, why not say it publicly? Why not go as far publicly as you might privately? I think a lot of it, Calvin, is to do with playing it safe and attempting to win over the mainstream media. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a strategy that's going to work, but it's a strategy. Do you see what I mean?
Is it possible
to win over the mainstream media? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But I guess we have a long electoral cycle, right? We have.
And do we need someone who's going to play it safe, or do we need someone who's going to be a British Trump?
Well, I just don't know what other option we have at this point.
This is the problem.
And I think, and I think, as the great June Slater says, sometimes you just have to back the best you've got. And the reason why I say is that I know in his heart Nigel is right on these issues, is that I would say he is absolutely not revealing all of his cards as yet. And there will be much more to come. There's a long electoral cycle here. But in terms of the strategy with the mainstream media, I hope that changes. And we did see some hints of it changing at the end of last year, Calvin, for example, when he walked out of the interview with Sly News, for example. I would like to see more of that. I think your message is right to Farage. Be more Trump in 2025. But okay, who's the runner-up? Who's got the silver medal of the Greatest Britons of 2024, according to the Outspoken audience? Here's the reveal.
Okay.
With an American flag. But Elon Musk, we claim him as an honorary Brit because, of course, as we just saw, Calvin, he's taking a lot of interest in British politics. And in fact, Calvin, he was so helpful, especially for people like me, over the course, for example, of the cover-up of the Southport massacre earlier this year, because he allowed us to broadcast the truth on X. He was calling out the terrible nature of two-tier Keir Starmer on X. So in fact, I would say this is a guy who has done a huge amount for the United Kingdom.
Oh, massively. And he's not a conservative. I don't think he's a Christian. So my political and spiritual views don't align with his on everything. But his libertarian worldview means that he believes in free speech. And that's so important for everything that we do. And so when he buys out Twitter and rebrands it as X and makes it the home of free speech, he gives us all a platform to voice our opinions and to spread the truth when the establishment wants to control the narrative at every single angle. So he has been instrumental in helping the United Kingdom and pretty much everyone else around the world who has access to X. And then, of course, his collaboration with President Donald J. Trump means that he's going to bring efficiency to the US government. And if we could have someone like that in the UK too, that would be amazing. No one's really changed the infrastructure of the United Kingdom government and the systems around it since Tony Blair. Tony Blair shaped it in his image, and the Conservatives were afraid of doing anything to compromise that. But imagine if we had someone in Nigel Farage's Reform Party that said, look, this is what we're going to do to drain the swamp. This is because otherwise, even if someone like Farage and Reform got in, they could say whatever they want. The Home Office wouldn't let them do mass deportations. The Foreign Office wouldn't let them do mass deportations. Like all of the civil service would be against them, and mechanisms of government would be against them. So we need someone like Elon Musk to come into the United Kingdom too and say, look, this is what you need to do. Dominic Cummings, for all his faults, was going to do this. He was going to change the shape of the UK infrastructure. We need someone bold enough to do that. And Elon looks like he's flirting with the idea of helping us out.
Yes, he is. He is indeed. And I'm a big fan. Thank you very much, Elon Musk. He actually won my first ever countdown of the 50 biggest freedom fighters in the world earlier this year. And he was very grateful for that too, which was exciting for me. Okay, Calvin, number one Greatest Briton of 2024. I am certain I know who this is. Are you?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, go on. Take a punt. Who's yours?
Genuinely. Oh, I can't. We've had so many great ones. Who's not been on the list that really should be on the list?
Okay, you are gonna. When I am convinced I know. I am convinced I know. And if it is who I think, you're gonna be, I get it. I get it. I would say, though, I am surprised that King Charles is not on the list. That's
really
surprised me. Yes, because of not to do with the political thing, but just to do with the fact that our monarch this year was diagnosed with really bad cancer, and he continued his duties. And for me, I thought that was incredible, actually, because that's what royal life is about, isn't it? It is you continue your duties, and he did. And I thought he was a great inspiration, actually. The way that he
That's
dealt
a good
with
point.
that
And for most parts of the year, he wasn't expected to live out the year. So to carry on working at the way and the pace that he has is quite something. It's stoicism of the old-fashioned sort, isn't it?
Big time. Okay, so if you want to take part in our conversations on the Dan Wootton Outspoken Club, here's how you do so. Just head to my X page at Dan Wootton, and you will see the invitation to the Dan Wootton Outspoken Club. And as I say, a huge thank you to Michael, to Karen Hankey, to Anna Island, to Darren Donaldson, who managed the club and who did so, by the way, for 6 months when I wasn't able to say a thing, but it was still the most sound place on the internet. So I am so grateful for them. Let's reveal the Greatest Briton of 2024. Yeah, I knew it. And I completely agree. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, because it was far more than what King Charles had to deal with, Father Calvin, given that for the most hysterical period, she was subjected to vicious and untrue lies about her life, about her marriage, about her safety, about whether she was even alive by cretinous individuals. A lot of them part of the Sussex Squad, people like Stephen Colbert. And the way that she dealt with that with such class and such dignity, given that we now know she had experienced a cancer diagnosis, I thought was phenomenal. And her respect and the love that the British people have for her, not just the British people, actually, people around the globe, I believe has only increased.
Yeah, you're right. She was going through something as a person, and her family were going through it with her, and she should have been given the space to recover and to heal. And instead, they forced her hand. They made her show herself. They basically said, "Prove you're still alive. We don't believe you." It was horrible to witness. And she had inner strength to power on through that and go to public events before she was supposed to be going to them. And she's another one that's been working despite things that have been going on in her life and in her health and in her family. And so, yeah, I think well done to Princess Kate for that. She's earned a lot of respect from British people this year.
Indeed she has. Indeed she has. All right, Father Calvin Robinson, what a year it has been. Thank you so much for all of your support, for being part of Outspoken, and I hope you have a wonderful start to 2025. We will speak in the new year, Calvin. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and have a happy new year.
And thank you so much for watching today. Thank you for making Catherine, the Princess of Wales, our greatest Briton of 2024. The best way you can support Outspoken is by subscribing to a monthly membership on Substack, www.outspoken.live. It's a safe space, free of censorship. It means I can get around the big tech censorship that exists. And all you have to do is enter your email address. It is completely free. Although if you do want to sign up for a monthly paid membership, of course, I would be grateful, and it could be a little Christmas present to yourself. But no, in all seriousness, please just sign up. I know how difficult times are, but this is a way for us to have a direct connection. Now, we're back. Boxing Day, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you so much for your support of Outspoken. And more than ever, I mean it when I say I promise to keep fighting for you. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.